Hi, I'm Rudy Gillane, the CapeCod.com News Center. Welcome to Sunday Journal. I'm joined today for a special shark-focused episode with two special guests from the Atlantic White Shark Conservancy. Do you mind introducing yourselves for our listeners?
Sure. I'm Ashleigh Novak. I'm the research coordinator for the Atlantic White Shark Conservancy.
And I am Marianne Walsh, and I'm the education director at the Atlantic White Shark Conservancy.
All right, awesome. Between the two of you, I'm going to learn a lot today. It's going to be a lot of fun. It is the shark season of Cape Cod, give or take. I'm not exactly sure if that's even accurate, because I think people have already mentioned before from your organization that sharks are in the water pretty much year-round. It's just in different amounts, and people aren't really on the beaches to notice it. But to start off, I just kind of wanted to ask a little bit more about how excited you guys for crossing the, I believe, 700 sharks have now been documented under your new catalog. Or I'm not quite sure how new it is exactly, but new sharks to the catalog. Do you mind just telling us a little bit more about like that catalog in general? How cool is it? Is that a special threshold? Was there cake? Did you celebrate? Like how does that go?
There should have been.
Seriously.
That was really exciting. We documented 91 individuals last year, and that was a great feat because it incorporated not only our work off of the Cape in collaboration with the state, but we also were pulling in other collaborations as well. So we collaborated with the Department of Fisheries and Oceans Canada, and as well as Atlantic Shark Expedition. So both of those operate in Canadian waters, and they collaborated with us and sent us underwater footage. And so our research team was able to identify 91 individuals from all of that footage. And so that put us over the 700 individual mark, which is incredible. So 700 individual white sharks. So each white shark is identified by its unique markings. And so we use different regions of the body. And so, if you visit our white shark catalog, which is on our white shark logbook, you'll be able to see all of them. They all have unique names. Most of them are attributed to, something. I always like to talk about Wolfie because he's one of my favorite sharks. He actually got tagged last year, but on his left caudal fin, he has like a little shape that's called an eyelet, and it looks like a little wolf head. And so it just makes it really easy to identify them from the underwater footage.
All right, it's a lot of fun. It's adorable.
Yes.
Now I have to ask though, do you have a favorite shark in terms of preferential treatment or interesting unique stories? I'm a big fan of LeeBeth. I've heard about this one that's been deep into Mexican waters.
LeeBeth made history this year, going into the Gulf of Mexico, and for the team to be able to track her movement there was really exciting. I would actually say, though, I'm a big fan of Scratchy, just because from the education side, Scratchy's a great example of, as Ashley was just talking, how we identify Scratchy. Obviously has scratches all over its face. But Ashley's not giving enough credit, I think, to herself and the research team when she talks about this 700. It takes a lot of work for the team to identify the sharks as individuals, and to be able to go through all the footage and identify over 90 new individuals this year was a big feat for the team to be able to do that and add that to the catalog. They've worked really hard.
Yeah, so it took, during the whole field season, which started last year around mid-July going into the beginning of November. It took us, from the days when we weren't off on the water until, I want to say, sometime in February to do all of those IDs. So it takes, two people, a long time. Mm-hmm. So the footage is collected using an underwater GoPro, and then we run it through an algorithm that spits out all the individual shark images, which makes it really easy on our part, but we color correct everything, and then we have to cross-check with our catalog.
Sure. And are these images and videos, are these online as well? I know you have an Instagram, so is that something that you can see as a public person as well?
Yeah, we often share them on our social media platforms. We do White Shark Wednesdays, where we usually highlight one of those individual sharks, so that's been a really fun way for the public to meet individual sharks each Wednesday and learn a little bit more about those individuals.
And like Ashley was saying before too, the White Shark Logbook is fully accessible to the public. So anyone can go right to the Conservancy's website and go to the logbook, and then they can see that entire catalog. So the public can end up having their favorite white shark as well. Now I feel like I have to ask you though. Do you have a favorite since you've been browsing the catalog?
LeeBeth, that's my favorite. I love the stamina, the gumption that is required of the shark to go so deep into the Gulf of Mexico. That was just a very interesting story to kind of talk about, and I definitely will ask more a bit later as well. I'm so sorry I have to bring up you guys. In terms of how dangerous these creatures can be, you have named them terribly. They're all so cute. They're like teddy bears. what I'm.
We do have a teddy bear.
You have. What do you mean? You're like the shark is named Teddy Bear,
yes.
or oh.
So the naming of the sharks, though, comes from a few different ways. Ashleigh mentioned before how a lot of them are named by how they're identified. So there's unique markings on them. But we are a nonprofit organization. So if you would like to name a shark and choose a different name, you can actually make a donation to the Conservancy to name a shark. It will be a tagged shark, so then you can follow the shark's movement, which is very exciting for you as well and to engage with the public. But that will help support the research and the efforts of the team to be able to get out there on the water more and do more of this work.
Mm-hmm. How do we feel about great white shark Grady? Is that something that we can maybe make happen at some point?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Oh, it's
you
open.
think I would know all the names?
700?
I think that I do, but I don't think we have a Grady.
There we go.
We could make it happen.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, we'll see. Well, next time we'll have you on, we'll be talking about great white shark Grady.
Yeah, making history.
Making history, all right. But yeah, 700. I don't even think I can come up with that many names. So I'm very impressed already. Congratulations to you both for that involvement. But as well, the research standpoint, the outreach standpoint, we have the new center in Provincetown. I believe that we chatted a little bit about off microphone as well. It's become a cultural phenomenon. Sharks on Cape Cod. I've seen hats. I've seen shirts. It's a little weird because it's like, well, they're very, very dangerous as well. I wanted to ask you guys a bit later about kind of how that intersects with like commerce and local wildlife and the culture of kind of like the marketing. But let's just start with the centers essentially. Who is welcome? How's that Provincetown Center going? How many do you have, and what can people kind of learn if they want to stop by for the day?
Yeah, so we have our original location is Shark Center Chatham, and then you are right, we opened Shark Center Provincetown a few years ago. And really a big push for opening a second museum is because our Chatham location couldn't meet the demand. We have people who come down for a day trip or people who visit while they're here on a longer vacation, who are just looking to learn more and have a better understanding of what's going on here with white sharks. So both museums are actually designed differently. So if you are really shark enthusiastic and you want to go to both, you can go to both and you can have two different experiences, which is really great. But both museums are designed to engage the public and teach them about the natural history of white sharks, the ongoing white shark research that's taking place, as well as the environmental factors of why white sharks are so important and why, it's incredible that we have the opportunity to study them off our coastline and how that research is then being used for conservation efforts, for public safety efforts. So you can get a lot of information by visiting the museum. Both will actually be opening May 16th for the 2024 season. So we're
May
coming
16th.
Up on opening date.
Do you have to get a ticket out ahead of time, or can you show up at the door and then?
We recommend buying your tickets in advance.
Okay.
Chatham is a smaller facility, and like many places on Cape Cod, parking is a little bit of a challenge. So we do have a capacity limit due to the parking. So we strongly recommend people buy their tickets in advance, and they can do that right through our website.
All right, awesome. Great to hear. You mentioned kind of like the opportunities, of course, for learning. It's so interesting to see kind of like the change as well, because for a lot of people, to them, the sharks are new. But that's not really true, I understand. The sharks were here first for quite some time, obviously, in terms of prehistoric amounts. We won't go that far back. But like even within the local, like past 100 years, there's actually quite a lot of sharks on Cape Cod. Can you elaborate a little bit more for me about that one? Just like kind of why did they go away? Why are they back again? What was the change?
Yeah, so do you want to piggyback off each other on this one, or do you want to go? Okay.
Gonna double team that one. I like it.
So we know through, historical fishing records and, talking to locals that white sharks have always been a part of the ecosystem here. There are actually some really incredible photos of white sharks being caught in weir fishing nets in Cape Cod Bay that show that evidence of white sharks being a natural part of our ecosystem here. What really started to happen then is human interference. So we started to see the decline in their population. We also saw the decline in their food source. So with the bounties on the seals that took place here, we saw the seal population decline. But really for white sharks, their population wasn't just affected by that, but this is where I always get it a little confused, but more has to do with bycatch, right?
Yeah, so they're, white sharks, slow growing, late maturing, low fecundity, so not a lot of pups. So that makes them especially vulnerable to being caught in some of these fisheries as bycatch. And bycatch is the incidental capture of a non-target species when you're out fishing. So I'm out on a boat, I want to catch a cod, and I'm actually catching a lot of haddock. Haddock would be your bycatch species because that's not something that you're targeting. And so a lot of people are out fishing, lots of, incidences of accidental capture. And so that was a part of the precipitous decline in the 70s and the 80s for white shark population. Mm-hmm. But then protections came into place. So they were listed as a protected species in 1997. And then coupled with the Marine Mammal Protection Act, it really has, showed an increase in both of their populations with the rise of the gray seals off of the Cape, the reestablishment of some of those colonies, and then the white sharks followed.
Nice. I mean, it's very interesting. Well, yeah, I guess so, A and then B and then go on from there. So are we at a population point where this is kind of like the stable amount of sharks, or are we kind of like still waiting to see? Like, is there like a ratio of shark to seal that we're like still waiting to see how that balances out, or?
That's a really good question. So our staff scientists last year published a really monumental paper on providing a population estimate for white sharks off the Cape. That's really where the ID work started. Oh. So between 2015 and 2018, approximately 800 white sharks visited the waters off of the Cape during that time. And so to answer your question, I'm not really sure where the equilibrium will fall out, but that's why, that's why the research is so important. So our catalog is so extensive. It goes back to 2014. It's a really great, as scientists, we love long-term data sets because then, you can, have a better idea of what's going on and then changes that continue to happen and how that's affecting things.
Stay tuned on Sunday Journal for 70 years from now when we have the answers to all these questions, and I'm a very old man. No, but that is awesome to hear, though I do want to cycle down. You mentioned 800 sharks. That's a lot of sharks. I also noticed that there's only 700 in the catalog. So I think that was a good opportunity to kind of talk about like people worried about like sharks on, beaches. Like, Absolutely. Can we have a shark warning system? And it's like, well, can we tag every shark is like the following question. And it sounds like the answer has already kind of been elucidated with the fact that there's 800 sharks possibly in the water and only 700 cataloged. But can you just talk a little bit more?
Sure. So that was, through those 4 years of the population. Okay. So it wasn't,
1 year, 800 sharks.
I think people get a little nervous and they're like, there's 700 sharks all at the same time. And that's not the case. They're really transient individuals. Some hang around for longer periods off the Cape, but they have a really long range. So they can go, as LeeBeth illustrated, really far west into the Gulf of Mexico during their southern migrations. But in the summer, they, some will visit and stay off the Cape, but others will go up into Canada. And that's why our collaborations with those two organizations in Canada have been so valuable, because we're documenting a lot of new individuals that we've never seen off of the Cape before in the 10 years or so that we've been cataloging individuals. So it's really an exciting
And Ashleigh's bringing up a great point that I think a lot of people don't realize is that we talk about these sharks off the coast of Cape Cod, but they're not Cape Cod white sharks. As she just noted, that habitat range from Canada all the way down off of Florida into the Gulf of Mexico is very large, right? And they're moving. So it's not that there are, the 700 sharks right off of Nauset Beach at a given point in time. They have that very large habitat range.
Mm-hmm. Are you telling me that these wild animals have no regard for our national borders? Is that what how dare they? How dare they? So, but that is really interesting. It's good to know the transient nature as well. Actually, I kind of meant to ask you, are you out like with the tag harpoon yourself, or like getting some of those tags on there?
We work with the state. So we work with Dr. Greg Scommel of the Massachusetts Division of Marine Fisheries, who has the permits to do that. So he's the one on the boat tagging, and AWSC was started to support that white shark research. Mm-hmm. So we're on the boat and we're taking the data and then we're processing everything afterwards. Mm-hmm. So
again, I'm going to hype Ashleigh up here because she's not just collecting data off that boat. She has also been flying a drone off the boat.
Yes,
which is really incredible new research that they've been doing, which is really cool to be a drone operator out there on the water. It's awesome.
It's tricky.
It's tricky.
Launching and landing a drone from a moving vessel.
Whoa. So do you have to have like a little helipad? Like how does that go? Or is it just like a throw it? You catch it.
So we
like
launch
with a net or your hand?
No, with our hand.
Okay.
We wear
how many fingers do you have?
Well, we actually wear, what is it? We wear a special glove that people who...
Like for falconry?
No.
Or like a leather...
But that's actually good. But yeah, it's like
Close.
I can't remember what it is, but we wear a special glove that keeps all of our fingers intact.
Wow, that's
when
good.
we catch it. Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. I mean, I have been on the Instagram. I'm a millennial, so that's where I live. But that is a lot. There's so many interesting pictures that you guys have gotten over the past few years, especially. So I will assume that is part of the reason why. So that is amazing. And I mean, all this is like, I want to talk about shark marketing, essentially. So I don't know if there's a better word for that, but like, so you guys have been talking a little bit more about like they're here to stay. Is your opinion like we might as well incorporate them into the Cape's visitor economy? Like, just like how like natural wildlife and bears are like a big thing for like the National Park Service. Like, it's just kind of part of nature. Like, what is your opinion? Is there a dangerous animal? Is it weird to be kind of hyping them up as something to come and see from a tourism standpoint? Or is that just like a necessary thing? Like, what are your opinions?
There's a few things that I think people need to be mindful of. And first, they are a wild animal. Having white sharks, though, in this region, something people need to realize is actually a signifier of having a really healthy ecosystem. So white sharks are apex predators at the very top of our ocean food web. If we didn't have a healthy ecosystem, we wouldn't be able to support having an apex predator, let alone seeing an increase in an apex predator's population. So their presence is signifying that we have really strong, healthy ecosystem off our coastline here, which is really exciting. The other part, as you said, is, to be honest, it's kind of happened naturally that the white sharks are becoming a draw to this region in a positive way. For years, people have traveled to South Africa or Guadalupe Island to be able to see white sharks in their natural habitat. Cape Cod is now a destination that people can come to be able to observe white sharks, just like people go to other parts of the world to see elephants or to see the wolves, right, at the national parks out in the other parts of the country. White sharks are a draw in that way. And we've been seeing this in multiple areas. One, our shark centers, until we kind of hit our capacity for them, we're seeing a 3,000 person increase over the first few years, in visitation that we first started and inviting visitors in. We've also have an ecotourism program that the last several years has been at its capacity. We're booking all of the boats that are going out. And we work with a lot of the resorts in the area, and people are absolutely coming here to be able to try to see white sharks in their natural habitat. So absolutely, they're a wild animal, and that means people need to be mindful when they're visiting our beaches here. But they're a wild animal that you don't get to see everywhere. And for some people who are nature enthusiasts or they're just fascinated by sharks, this is the place that they can come see them now, which is a great opportunity.
Mm-hmm. I mean, when I think of the shark, like, how long before we get like the cage where like you can go diving? Is that's probably not in the cards for you guys, I would imagine, or is
that's something permitting wise that would need to happen.
Well, of course.
There are cage diving operations off of New England, but it's out in federal waters. They're mostly targeting other species of sharks, but there would have to be regulation and permitting to go the cage diving.
Mm-hmm. Well, good to know we're keeping safe, of course. Anybody who's advertising that off of Cape Cod or out of Yarmouth or something, be aware. Probably not permitted. Okay, but that is really cool. So, I mean, obviously, there was a while back, there was a shark attack, like in Wellfleet, I believe, with Arthur Medici and stuff like that. And so it was kind of like a case of like that balance of like back and forth. Like they were thinking about a memorial bench. I believe that has gone through as well. We'll set up to kind of remind people as well. Like that was part of the select board meetings, was talking about like, well, is this also going to be just like a reminder essentially of like, just be careful. You need to be aware. Like a lot of people have come to Cape Cod for years and maybe just have gotten used to the fact that it was so safe, quote unquote. So is this also educational, kind of in a way of like trying to normalize this a little bit more?
So talking about sharks is absolutely, part of the education standpoint to make people more aware. I mean, another great example is the evolution of the signs that you see on the beaches. There used to be a sign that talked about white sharks, it talked about riptides, it talked about jellyfish. And now you see a designated sign to talk about the white shark specifically. And that is to try to grab people's attention more. Because as you said, people more and more have been hearing about the white sharks. But then once they get on the beach and they've been sitting there for a few hours, are they really remembering, that there is a wild animal there in those waters? Not just swimming, but hunting in that area. So, those reminders and whether it be through the signage, the purple shark flags. One of the initiatives that the Conservancy has done is actually our Shark Smart Beach program. So we put ambassadors on the beaches to be there to answer the public's questions and better educate them about the presence of sharks, because people do need to be aware how they're using the water recreationally.
All right, awesome. I think this might be a good time to ask a little bit more about the Sharktivity app as well. We talked a bit off the cameras before this was kind of going, but we of course have this awesome app. I heard, I don't know if am I spilling beans or not, but they're going to be doing some updates to that soon. Is that something we can talk about? Maybe it's in the works.
There's going to be some cool stuff coming in the future.
Okay.
How about that?
Yeah. We'll leave it at that.
The team is working hard with some updates for it on the data side. And so,
Sure.
Everyone should stay tuned. Sharktivity is going to have some exciting things happening come later in the spring.
Oh, all right. But it is for this year, potentially, just to make sure that I'm on the same page, or do you mean for...
I'm not sure.
Not sure. Okay.
Yeah,
I'm going to get you in so much trouble with
No.
It's full detection data.
Oh, yeah, detection. Yeah. Oh, detection data absolutely will come out this year. So we're still waiting on a few receivers to come in from the 2023 season. But once those are in, we're going to process the data. And then that data also lives on the White Shark logbook. So that's not only does it house our catalog of over 700 individual sharks, but it also showcases all the historic acoustic detection data. So that will be in the next few months also going on.
All right, awesome. Yeah, so this is for people who aren't familiar, the Sharktivity app it keeps track of like if there's a ping of like a tagged shark just off the coast. So it sounds really interesting though, being able to see the historical, like how many sharks have come to this area before. I hope that doesn't impact people's decision making skills on what beaches that they want to go to. I imagine that it probably will in some regards.
There are disclaimers. But... the only way to stay safe is to stay on shore. And then there's a lot of other. I mean, Marianne the education director, so she can speak a lot more to it. But a lot of the work that we do is centered around like trying to provide the best available data to public safety officials to make those decisions for their individual beaches that they manage.
So people do. They look at the app and we want them to use it to decide how they feel comfortable using the water recreationally. So they absolutely can turn to that app, and during the season to look at where recent shark sightings have taken place, so that then they are being armed with the most up-to-date science and information to make the best decision for them.
Yeah, and a little bit more background about Sharktivity. So if you're on the water, say you're out on a boat and you see a white shark, you can actually, if you take any videos or photos, you can submit a sighting on the app. And that's really a great way to include, to get a lot of sightings from everywhere that white sharks may inhabit. So we've used that data before to help identify individuals and people sending us photos or videos also through our email, our info box. Those have been added to our catalog as well to increase, the awareness that you can submit sightings to us. We'll check it against our catalog and see if we have ID'd the individual. And if not, then we can add it, which is a great way to get the public more engaged and interested. Yeah,
that's awesome. I've been asking a lot of people lately with the Center for Coastal Studies and whatnot about how do citizen scientists kind of like factor into the research. And is that like, I can only imagine my high school science teachers kind of like berating me about proper sources and stuff like that. But so that is useful to you? Is like being able
we work with a collaborator at the New England Aquarium who vets all of that data. So anytime the sightings goes through, there's someone on the back end reviewing those sightings.
All right, awesome. Good to know we can't just have like a bunch of hoax shark sightings of, right off the coast of what have you. But we are about coming up on time now, unfortunately. Is there anything else you wanted to add for our listeners? I did want to ask as well, you mentioned the state. So have you had like state and federal officials that have been coordinating with you guys about like data collection or like ways that you've been able to, have conversations a bit more in general? You mentioned also talking with the Canadians and across the water about some of this stuff, but like how is the collaboration going for like state officials as well, or federal officials, or the Coast Guard, or what have you? Did they reach out as well for data?
Yeah, I would say that we've been working with the state of Massachusetts, particularly Dr. Greg Scomo, who's the shark biologist, and we've been working with him really closely since AWSC began. And then these programs in Canada are relatively new. And so in terms of their ID, like collecting ID footage, and they know that we have this great catalog. And so they've been willing to share that data with us. And it's great for us because a lot of them are new individuals, but we did also see 4 sharks that we've originally saw off Cape Cod. So that's really great. And that we haven't seen them, I think, since around 2020. So we haven't known where they've gone. And now, we have a better idea of like, oh, it was Pearl, Dale, Angel, and Chopper. So those are the 4 sharks. So if you're interested, you can go to the White Shark Logbook and the catalog and check those sharks out.
All right. Once again, terrible with the naming convention. They're way too cute. You need to name them like Stabby and like Bitey or something. Instead, Chopper. That was a good one. Angel. No, I just want to cuddle her. That's too cute.
There's a little like picture, or it looks like a little like image of an angel on her caudal fin. So that's why. Yeah.
All right. How can I be scared of that? All right. Well, we're about coming up on time, but any last words you wanted to add for our listeners while I still have you? Either of you?
Yeah, so I think for folks, as we are getting ready for the summer season, we just want to remind everyone, as Ashleigh talked about, you can help us with the research by, if you observe a white shark out there, please use the Sharktivity app and make us aware. And also just remember that we are here to be a resource for you. So visit one of our shark centers, look for us on the beach. We know that this is something that is happening in everyone's backyard here on Cape Cod, and we want everyone to be armed with the best information, information that is proven through strong research efforts. So please look to us, and we want to be here to answer any of those questions the public has.
All right, awesome. As well, for the description of this episode up on capecod.com, we'll also have the link out to your guys' websites, as well as if people want to be seeing some of those photos or the footage, especially from the new point of view of the various sharks with that new tagging system. So if anybody's interested for more, feel free to head to capecod.com. Thank you both for joining me for this conversation.
Thanks for having us. Yeah. This was great.
I'm Grady Collane in the CapeCod.com News Center, and thank you for listening to Sunday Journal.